Grab my bag.
Yep.
Pull out the Bluettes book, and just pull two sticky notes out of that. Hopefully ones that are blank, but if they aren't, it's fine. All right, I'm just gonna kind of keep talking, so let me know if I need to adjust anything. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Cool, we're good. Awesome. All right, thank you guys. Okay, and then can you grab a pen? Thank you. Because I just want to mark where the in-person readers need to read from.
Oh, yeah, good call.
If you like bang on the desk a lot and stuff, it shakes the mic and makes it a bad sound.
Okay, no banging on the desk? Will do.
lucky to be the founding faculty advisor for 2 journals we produce. Hindsight, Creative Nonfiction, our parent journal, and our special themed annual print journal, Changing Skies. We're here to launch volume 3 of our 2024 issue, publishing writers from CU and around the world on the climate crisis. After Scott King's Mission Zero got us going 2 years ago, the Nature Conservancy in Colorado has provided generous funding for tonight's event, our recent writing contest, 2 winners of which you'll hear tonight, and for the print run to put these journals in your hands if you're here. Thanks also to the Program for Writing and Rhetoric's Mindy Slaughter, Linda Nacita, and Chris Benson in our front office, and to our employees for their support of our journals. But neither Changing Skies nor Hindsight, which will print again in April, would be possible without the hard work of our all-undergraduate staff of 25 students who bring the work of our talented contributors into print. This semester, we've been lucky to have a new editor-in-chief, but soon unlucky enough to be losing him to graduation. He's been fantastic along with the rest of our staff. I'll hand off to him now to introduce our keynote, our editor-in-chief, Cade Yoshioka.
All right, well, thank you for the introduction, Jay. My name is Cade Yoshioka, and I am the current editor-in-chief of Hindsight. Bittersweetly, this is my first and last launch event as Hindsight's editor-in-chief, as I will promptly be escorted into the great publishing house in the sky, also known as graduation. I'd like to take a moment to thank our staff for their continued hard work as we wrap up Changing Skies Volume 3 and launch into our next project, Hindsight Volume 5. Your dedication has made this journal possible. However, Sebastian Melanson, in keeping with tradition of our last editor-in-chief, I will be firing you as my last act on staff. He knows what he did. Check out our last launch video on our website for that little reference. Humanity today stands on a precipice. Global warming, plastic pollution, and rising sea levels threaten to melt the thinning glaciers beneath our feet. In the coming decades, we will have to overcome these challenges, lest we tumble into the murky waters below. It's admittedly a daunting task to undertake. In a world that feels as though it's crumbling, one thing is certain. There is hope. Changing Skies represents hope in a lot of ways. The journal you hold in your hands encapsulates the hope of writers and artists to get published in a shrinking print publishing world. The hope of myself and my fellow staffers to produce a new issue and continue a tradition of publication started in 2013. The hope of present and emerging voices that continue to assert we have the power and potential to leave this planet better than we found it. As the several video readings our international contributors sent us can attest to, there are voices all around the globe using their immense talent to bring us hope in our darkest hours. My biggest desire for this journal is that it serves as a reminder to us all to face each new day with optimism and determination in the face of a melting world. Joining us tonight to celebrate the 3rd volume of Changing Skies is Hilary Rosner. Hilary is an editor, professor, and environmental journalist writing about the ways human activity is altering our planet and the latest climate innovations within the environmental science community. She also works as the assistant director of the Center for Environmental Journalism here on the CU Boulder campus. Her upcoming book, Roam the Race to Knit the Natural World Back Together, will be published next year and revolves around the movement of non-human species around the planet and how human infrastructure and activity have disrupted those migrations, while additionally highlighting the incredible people working to reconnect these creatures to the world at large. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming tonight's keynote speaker, Hilary Rosner.
Thanks so much. I'm going to hire you as my publicist when my book launches. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from so many talented writers who will be reading their work in this issue. So I thought that I would also read something, and it's a chapter, part of a chapter from my forthcoming book. Kate did a great job of telling what it's about, so I will not. But this book tries to highlight solutions, although in order to do that, you also have to explain what the problem is. I thought I would read something that was a little bit more kind of light tonight, and one of the things that I try to do in my work is explain how science works and kind of try to humanize the scientists. And so hopefully this excerpt does a little bit of that. I've stuck a few bits together to make a coherent excerpt here. So there's a little bit from the very beginning of the book and then just a bit from the rest of the chapter. And I have never read any of this aloud before. So here goes. At the tail end of the 20th century, when I was living in the engineered asphalt ecosystem of Manhattan, a coyote made its way into Central Park. It was April Fool's Day, of all things, and the incident had the vague whiff of a prank. Helicopters searched the ground from above, while a throng of cops and animal welfare workers chased the coyote across the park's landmarks, from the skating rink to the Great Lawn to a nature sanctuary, and finally a World War I statue, where the poor animal collapsed, having been hit by a tranquilizer dart as he tried to dodge his pursuers by swimming across a pond. The coyote was ultimately named Otis and sent to live in a half-acre enclosure at the Queens Zoo, where he lived in a pack of renegade coyotes captured in various places unsanctioned by humans. At the time, park officials noted that coyotes had come in increasing presence in New York City, particularly in the Bronx, but they weren't certain how this one had arrived in the center of Manhattan. They speculated that he had trotted over the Henry Hudson Bridge, which connects Manhattan to the Bronx. But how he navigated the concrete canyons of the Upper West Side was a mystery. I grew up in those same concrete canyons and returned after college to work as a journalist, and I was transfixed by the idea that there might be ribbons of green spaces through which a reasonably large mammal could travel in such a heavily urban area, like a highway, but for animals. I had spent a good chunk of my childhood traipsing around Central Park, and now I looked at the place in a new way. I was fascinated that this manicured, purpose-built, fake natural place could host wild creatures beyond just rats and squirrels and the odd pond turtle. Otis was my first intellectual encounter with the notion of wildlife corridors. 7 years after Otis sparked a panic in uptown Manhattan, another coyote turned up in Central Park. Like Otis, this coyote, nicknamed Hal, was tracked, cornered, and darted in a spectacle that involved an exhausting chase by the NYPD, the Parks Department, and of course, the media. Hal was ultimately released in a more coyote-friendly habitat, wherever that was. Again, officials could only guess how he had arrived in New York. They ventured that he might have crossed a railroad bridge or else swam beneath it. Years later, pondering our chopped-up world and the way animals were moving through it, I thought back to those two Central Park coyotes. There were so many losers in the era of fragmentation, but were there winners too? Were coyotes of turn of the millennium New York a harbinger of a new coyote-friendly world? While so many animals' habitats are shrinking, a few are actually expanding their ranges, managing to thrive in spite of or even because of human activity. Coyotes are one of them. Since 2009, the Gotham Coyote Project has been studying the ecology of the city's coyotes. So I called up Anthony Caragiulo, a geneticist who worked for the project and also worked at the American Museum of Natural History. For Caragiulo's PhD, he had used mountain lion scat to study the genetic relationships between wild cats that lived throughout Central and South America. In order to study scat, someone first has to locate it and then collect it, in this case in the mountains and jungles of Central and South America. Caragiulo, though, was not that guy. He had chosen to work in the relative safety of the lab. I don't need to go out in the field with botflies, he added, adding that he doesn't even like to go camping. For the Gotham Coyote Project, teams collected scat closer to home. Caragiulo was analyzing DNA from coyote poop collected in parks around New York City and the suburbs. But he, once again, stayed in the lab, waiting for the scat to come to him. I don't go out and collect anything, he said when we spoke on the phone. People just send me boxes of crap in the mail. Coyotes, it turned out, had established permanent residence in the city's outer boroughs, but not yet in Manhattan. In January 2020, though, another coyote passed through Central Park. By then, New Yorkers had grown more blasé. Instead of a chase, there was a tweet. The NYPD told people to observe and appreciate coyotes from a distance. Like many New Yorkers, coyotes were paying occasional visits to Manhattan, but living elsewhere. They were thriving in the Bronx and continuing to expand their territory, moving across the East River into Queens and out toward the suburbs of Long Island. The researchers were trying to build a map of all the coyotes to understand who was related to whom and where they had come from. Caragiulo's role in building the map was to extract the DNA from coyote poop he received in the mail. It was hard to picture. Post office poop. So do people just like put it in a box and write your address on it, I asked. They put it in a brown paper bag, he answered, and sometimes they throw in some silica beads, like the ones that come when you buy a pair of shoes. And it just shows up in your mailbox at the Natural History Museum? I had spent a good part of my childhood at the museum, and I still viewed it with the awe and reverence of a kid. If you'd asked me what I thought might arrive in the mailboxes of the museum's scientists, I'd have said exotic gemstones, or the perfectly preserved vertebra of plesiosaurs, not coyote poop from the Bronx. Caragiula graciously invited me to see his inbox for myself, so one morning I met him at the museum's basement entrance. It was a Tuesday in the fall of 2021, and because of pandemic-related staffing shortages, the museum was closed on Tuesdays. We headed to a giant elevator and rode it to the 8th floor. The hallways were deserted as most people were still working from home. The pandemic had also caused supply chain issues. Normally abundant items like DNA sequencing kits were taking 3 months to arrive. This had slowed down Caragiula's coyote work, and the poop was piling up in his lab. He walked me over to an area of the lab where the shelves and surfaces were lined with cardboard boxes and precarious stacks of envelopes. At a station marked Bench 3, Scat Bench, he opened a box that in turn was filled with small paper bags. Cedars Golf Course, Cutchogue, read the handwritten info on one bag, from a scat collector named Jay Murray, picked up on January 8th. Near goose carcass and possible vomit of goose feather and bones, the notes stated. I could see why Caragiula preferred the lab. Other bags had different people's names on them, as well as the names of various green places throughout Long Island. Quogue Wildlife Refuge, Kings Point Park. He donned a pair of blue latex gloves, spread a piece of tissue on the table, and opened a paper bag. He retrieved a small bit of dried scat. It had no noticeable smell, and it looked like nothing more than a clump of mud. He shrugged. This could be anything, I have no idea. But by extracting and analyzing the DNA from the scat, he can quickly tell, first, whether it does in fact come from a coyote. Most of it does. Then he can examine which samples come from the same individual coyote and which come from coyotes that are related. He can also determine just how closely related they are. He told me, the goal is to say, over the years, which families were successful and where they colonized, to look at this web of movements that's a snapshot in time. From the DNA, the researchers have built a map of genetic connectivity and also a hypothesis about how the coyotes settled in the city in the first place. They likely moved down from the suburbs in Westchester to parks in the Bronx, and their descendants colonized other parks in other boroughs. The coyotes in Queens, the newer arrivals, are related to the coyotes in the Bronx. Like many New York stories, it's a tale of immigration and survival. Scientists are interested in this particular snapshot because they can now watch as coyotes move into a landscape where they have never existed before, Long Island. Up until the late 1800s, coyotes existed only as far east as the Mississippi River. We say things like, oh, black bears are coming back, or bobcats are coming back, said Chris Nagy, one of the founders of the Gotham Coyote Project, but coyotes are showing up for the first time. From a scientific perspective, watching a species colonize a new area is an uncommon opportunity, which makes it kind of cool. It's really rare that we get to see the front of a species moving into a new territory, Caragiula said. If in 30, 40, or 100 years, people are still here, and Long Island is still here, and there are still coyotes, we can see how they've changed from those original individuals. And they'll know in part by studying the desiccated evidence that may still be arriving at the American Museum of Natural History's mailroom. So that excerpt is fairly upbeat. It's a rare tale of a wild animal that's thriving. But a lot of the stories that I write, and maybe some that you all write, are less upbeat. I write about a lot of depressing things, and I've been doing it for 2 decades, and it wears on you for sure. And sometimes I know too much, and that makes it hard to turn off my brain and try to appreciate the little things. So sometimes on a hike, instead of appreciating the beauty of the trees, I might notice that the forest is overcrowded, and then I start thinking about how it's more likely to burn in a catastrophic fire. Or I might notice that there are invasive species crowding out native ones. Or I might notice that there used to be, or there should be, more birdsong or more insects buzzing. And maybe that's why friends have stopped asking me to hike with them. But I also know that it is crucial to work at turning that off, because I can't let this job wear me down. It's too important. I just reviewed a book just the other day about endangered species. It's a book called Vanishing Treasures by the British writer Catherine Rundell. And there's a line in it that's really stuck with me. The book is a plea for people to wake up and recognize the incredible beauty of the other creatures that we share this planet with, and to step up and protect them. And the line that stuck in my head is, the time to give up is never. The time to give up is never. We can't. So how can we keep writing about the environment even when it sometimes becomes overwhelming? I wanted to offer you all a few tips. First, focus on the positive. Experience awe. Get swept up in the beauty around you. Research solutions. Seek out and write about the people who are devoting their lives to protecting the planet, because there are a lot of them. Some of them are in this room. Cultivate hope, and spend time doing things that you love with people that you love in places that you love in order to recharge. Second, recognize the value of bearing witness. When I see this as my job, to chronicle the changes that humans are causing in the natural world at this moment in time, it motivates me. If I can also change someone's mind in the process or inspire action, that's a bonus. But if my goal is to bear witness, then meeting it depends on my own action and not the response of other people. So I encourage you all to bear witness through your stories to the things that you're observing around you. And third, recognize that you are not alone, right? Look around you. Your work is part of a much bigger effort. You are telling stories that need to be told, and there are millions of people who agree with you and support you and want to hear and read those stories. So seek solace in your fellow writers, join together, support one another. You are part of something bigger. I hope these 3 things can help you keep writing stories about the environment. Focus on the positive, bear witness, and recognize that you are not alone. Because we need people to tell these stories. As many people as possible, in as many outlets as possible, in as many ways as possible, and for as many audiences as possible. The time to give up is never. Thanks, and I'm excited to hear your stories.
Well, how's everyone doing tonight? Good? Good. So, thank you again for that wonderful keynote, Professor Rosner. We are very lucky to have you speaking at our event tonight as an esteemed scholar and as an even more esteemed environmentalist. For those who may not know, I'm Sebastian Malasan. I was the managing editor of Changing Skies, but I'm on the job market right now. So I would just like to take a quick moment to thank everybody that has graced us with their presence tonight, friends and family, near and afar. In trying times, it is always you that pushes us to not be afraid with your constant love, loyalty, and empathy. And to our contributors, the many authors and artists, photographers and poets alike, this journal wouldn't exist without your support and your humanity. Climate change is often a very depressing topic, more so depressing when you consider the scope of it all and your role in it. It is very easy to feel alone, and it's very easy to feel hopeless. But it's to these contributors, the ones who are brave enough to give voice and soul to your world and to your arts, that it reminds us constantly of the transformative power of a story. Though we are born into this world where flowers may bloom on icebergs, where waters rising may swallow entire cities one day, wherever songs of endangered creatures might one day be silent, there is still hope. Because in every page of Changing Skies, Volume 3, lies a message. A reminder that when our stories are shared, they become a chorus and a call to action. This journal is not just a publication. It's a legacy and a guide for those who seek to do better every single day. So tonight, let's honor this courage and the dedication behind these stories and the hope that they can give to us all. Thank you so much again for being here and being part of something much greater. May we find strength in each other, our work, and our vision for a better tomorrow. So next up, we have 2 virtual readings, with our first reading being by Karen Hadetmi, the author of Mountain Fire Breath, on page 14 if you would like to follow along, and Nicholas Crane Moore, the author of Returning to Glacier. Thank you again.
Hi, I'm Karen Hedetnimi from Vancouver Island, Canada, and I will be reading my story, Mountain Fire Breath. The mountain road to Miette Hot Springs in Jasper National Park is shoulderless and unlit. As it winds us away from the main highway, deeper into the backcountry, I have unsettled fears. Bears, ongoing burning wildfires, the remote wilderness far from safety. Many cars hurry past, exiting. Why aren't any following behind us? Pulling into the gravel parking lot, my anxieties ease. The historic craftsman bungalows are enchanting. Canadian group of 7, Tom Thompson-esque. Single pane windows with wrought iron latches, hand-hammered doorknobs, a bell jar for the porch light, blowing a welcome. The heart of our cabin is a fieldstone fireplace with a wood slab mantel. Beside it, a box brimming with firewood, stocked from the outside by removing an exterior panel, like old-fashioned milk delivery. A small herd of bighorn sheep parade through the site, nibbling on grasses before slipping into the twilight forest. Gary gets to work chopping kindling. Soon the fire snaps, warming the stones. Sometime in the night, the poodle woofs with her low, concerned tone. I tune in from my half-sleep, disoriented by rumbles overhead on the metal roof. A bear? Hail? No, I smile to myself. It's the bighorn sheep.
My name is Nicholas Moore, and I'm going to read the beginning of my essay, Returning to the Glacier. Along its outermost edge, the glacier had a polished feel. I ran my hands across its frigid surface, caressing the grooves and contours as one admires a finely sculpted piece of marble. The ice was smooth to the touch, slippery with meltwater and rain. It was melting beneath my fingers. To reach the glacier, I had traveled alone through the yellowing fall, threading mountain passes turning crimson in the chilly air. I looked for bears but did not see any in the meadows beside the highway. I did not yet know to scan the higher slopes, where they gorge on late-season berries amid the tundra. Hiking to the edge of the ice was not arduous. From the ice field high above, a perpetually frozen plateau, 700 square miles, the glacier hung into the canyon, terminating less than a mile from the Park Service parking lot. I followed the main trail to a designated viewpoint, then scrambled beyond it over dark talus scraped loose by the retreating glacier. Signs warned of danger from falling ice, but the temptation was too great. I had never touched a glacier before. That was 5 years ago, nearly to the day. 1 week later, I met the woman who would become my wife, a lifelong Alaskan with wildness in her soul. Cece helped me see the beauty in starkness and silence, the joy of adventures in cold and snow and ice. She opened my eyes to the presence of light in even the darkest hours. Now I am returning to the glacier, this time with my wife. As we depart Anchorage, I tell her I am anxious to see how much it has changed during these 5 years, which have brought such transformation to my own life. 5 years during which the world pursued reduction of carbon in the atmosphere without the slightest sense of urgency, and in which, one summer, Anchorage suffered the discomfort and confusion of 90-degree heat. I'm scared to see how little of the ice is left. Thank you. As we depart Anchorage, I tell her I'm anxious to see how much it has changed during these 5 years.
Hi everyone, and thank you Nicholas and Karen for that reading. My name is Ines Durant, and I feel very lucky to speak to you about joining our staff. I first found Hindsight as a transfer student in January. As the submissions manager this term, I've had the opportunity to work with talented authors and artists featuring Changing Skies Volume 3. I have been grateful to join an amazing group of people where I continue to be inspired by the hard work, dedication, and welcoming and fun environment created throughout the work on the journal. As this is a student-run journal, we are always looking for new members to join. There are many ways to join Hindsight through a class called Writing 3095, flexible internships, or even volunteering. We welcome staff with any interests, whether that be editorial, marketing, art, or more. We are specifically looking for staff interested in business or audio and video. Feel free to check out our website or reach out to any of us if you have any questions. Now please enjoy the reading of When Jetstreams Guide by Neil Calvert on page 20.
Hello, my name is Neil Calvert. I live at Campbell River, British Columbia, Canada, which is on that big island just off the west coast. The title of my piece is When Jetstreams Guide. I'm driving across Oak Street Bridge, emblem of the city's southern boundary, wondering where I will find peace of mind today. Having overworked and overworried yet again, been tense and unhappy for a week, I must find a way to unwind. The vibrant cobalt blue filling the top half of the world, contrasting with the heavy rain that has bombarded Vancouver for days, is already an uplift. On this Sunday morning, I'm thinking of farm country 70 kilometers to the east, when through the windshield I notice, gradually extending across the sky, a bright white jet contrail. The track acts like a living pointer, so I head instead for Crescent Beach, 50 kilometers to the south. A half hour later, I'm parked at Blackie Spit, observing the worry-free, self-sufficient ducks, gulls, and shorebirds that feed near this small sandy point. The view across Boundary Bay through my windshield extends for tens of kilometers northwest to the snow-capped North Shore Mountains, southwest to the southern Gulf Islands, and west to the much larger peninsula whose southern tip is American territory, Point Roberts, Washington State. The smell of my fresh, hot potato egg cheese wrap announces breakfast to the local crows who assemble hopefully nearby. Soon I'm throwing glue corn chips from my stash out the driver's window, and then one of the rainy birds perches on my outside mirror, just a half meter from my face. As it bends forward to take a chip from my hand, its impossibly delicate, wrinkled, black, trident claws struggle to keep their grasp on the chrome mirror frame, producing faint, precious scraping sounds new to my ears. Then, a morsel firmly in its beak, it heads down to the ground. Setting the chip on the grass, it jabs at it till it breaks, swallows the bits, and then returns for more. The rest of the tribe is content to feed on whatever I toss out the window. I walk to the narrow point where the tide comes in from two sides, just a meter apart. I feel like a giant as I stand quietly, soaking my shoes in the incoming surf, soaking my mind in tranquil early sunshine. Then I head to the main beach area to sit on one of the varnished wood slab benches that adorn the promenade for which Crescent Beach is known. Listening to the waves easily rolling in, I examine the 8-kilometer expanse of water that separates me from Point Roberts. Besides me, the bay is home today only by seagulls, still blue air, and one distant motoring sailboat. But I am mildly surprised when a contrail begins forming in the western sky. It points slightly downwards toward the tree cape of Point Roberts. I say to myself, if jet contrails are guiding me today, and Point Roberts, WA, is my next destination.
Thank you, Neil. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining us tonight. My name is Michaela Milaro, and I am the managing editor of Hindsight. Coming into this semester, we lost a lot of old staffers, but thankfully gained a lot of new faces. I think that working with a new group is always nerve-wracking. You never know what to expect. But that being said, I am pleased to report that this Changing Sky staff, which will hopefully also be the next Hindsight staff, has been utterly fantastic. I've been a bit nervous to step into the role of managing editor, but seeing the work that this group has done has pretty much dispelled my anxieties. Already, I'm sure that Hindsight is going to be amazing. For those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do, Changing Skies is not the only journal we publish. This spring, we will be developing and publishing Volume 5 of Hindsight, our more general creative nonfiction journal. For Hindsight, like for Changing Skies, we accept memoir, poetry, personal essay, basically anything as long as it's true. Identity, bad dates, love, grief, hate, family, run-ins with weirdos, it's all fair game. If there's a story you need to tell, an emotion you need to get out, some part of you that you can't bear to keep inside any longer, we want to read about it. So please, look back on your life and carve out a little piece that you'd like to share with the world. We'd love to help you do it. And now, I'm proud to introduce Megan Muthupandian, who will be reading an excerpt from her piece, The Time of the Snails, which you can find on page 30, followed by Amy Mackey, who will be reading her piece, Prescribed Burn, which can be found on page 58. Thank you.
The Time of the Snails by Meg Muthupandian. The way wends west toward Fistera, a place named for what the ancient Celts believed was the end of the world. The sunrise is never witnessed except by those pilgrims who, like Orpheus, turn backward. The snail's rise, however, can be witnessed every morning, and it is a remarkable sight. As the steel sky blanches into tin, the nocturnal kingdom of the European garden snail, Helix aspera, reveals itself. In the darkness, they have held their congress within the forests and fields, bracing the path or roadside. But they are creatures of earth and water, not wind and fire. Their soft feet and antennae slowly undulate beneath their tiger-eye shells as, guided by a remarkable homing instinct, they cross the road, finding their way back to their cool burrows before the sun regains its command. For as far as the eye can see, these tiny caravans punctuate the way. So does the fine lace of their mucus trails, which glisten like the quicksilver stripes of a zebrafish darting through a coral reef. Pilgrims will transect hundreds and thousands of these translucent trails for miles without realizing the kinship that they possess with these tiny mollusks. They have entered the time of the snails.
Hi everyone, I'm going to be reading from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Right behind me is a beautiful juniper tree, and I'm Amy Mackey, and I'm going to read Prescribed Burn. It's a poem. Fire sparked fur. The cave collapsed with trees. Crash. Glasses matched liquid and sheared. A body thinly cursed, yearned. House burned with zazur lights. The patio looked beautiful. He tumbled toward the river with smoking brown fat. The hors d'oeuvres were ready. Water pulled him past the red flames and real estate signs. A couple enjoyed cigarettes, resting backs on wooden decks. His head dripped, swayed, and collapsed on the gray bank. She adjusted her bra and popped a pill while admiring the tile. No fish in an early spring river. Headlights reach 20 feet into the pines. Human laughter and the smell of seared flesh. Salt was the last thing he heard. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you Megan Mathonian and Amy Maki for sharing your pieces. My name is Anne-Marie Menchu, and I had the privilege of serving as the marketing director for Hindsight's marketing team this fall. I am deeply grateful for the incredible opportunities I've experienced, and I'm thrilled to be here as we celebrate this year's release of Changing Skies Volume 3. This year, we aim to showcase literary works that explore both the impacts of climate change and our planet through exceptional nonfiction creative writing. As marketing director, I have worked with journalists and for Colorado's newspapers, and I have learned so much from this experience. Thank you for the team for welcoming me for full time. It is an experience I truly recommend if anyone is considering and you don't want to miss out on joining our Hindsight's family. I'm excited to see what the next year brings for Hindsight and hope everyone here will enjoy what our journal presents today. Thank you, and please welcome Fia Ilsas reading an excerpt of her piece, Young Enough to Watch the World Burn at 60.
Hello. Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here at Changing Skies, and thank you for everyone to be here too in the crowd. So actually I'm going to start reading my piece kind of in the middle. I believe if you flip to the very middle of page 62, that's where I'll start. By now in the story, I have encountered a very angry lady at the Welcome Center where I work at, and I'm trying to tell her desperately that I have no brochures to give her. So I'll start here. If you have a question or need suggestions for your trip, I'm happy to help. My eye twitched just a little bit, and I tapped my head and said, all the information is in my head. And that was snarky, apparently. She told me so right then and there that it was snarky because you know what? I am snarky. Because I'm a walking brochure. Because my job replaces a brochure. Because who needs brochures when you have a snarky-ass, smiling, smart aleck, know-it-all Welcome Center worker who has grown up in this town and worked in this Welcome Center for 2 whole years, whose job it is to tell you on what to do on vacation, whose job is to tell you everything and more a brochure can. And you know what? It's fine, I said. The world is changing and all our information is moving electronically now, so paper is on its way out, I said, all with a smile. She huffed and stomped her feet, and she wound up her gears so tight that they had nothing more to do than pop. I saw a small puff of smoke wisp out of those dazzling dark sunglasses of hers. And you know what? She took a step closer. This world is going up in flames, and this town is going to be the one that starts it. And it's okay, she exclaimed, because I won't be the one to see it through, because I'm going to be long gone by the time this country, this world goes up in flames, but you will still be here to watch this hellfire shit show through, because you don't have any brochures, because you are young enough to watch the world burn. And you know what I should have yelled back? I'm sorry, I should have replied. I'm sorry, I'm so very sorry. I'm so sorry that you're taking a vacation in the most beautiful place in the world. I'm sorry that you have to navigate around this incredibly safe and walkable town, all with a damn map and the damn suggestions from a local. Oh, I'm sorry, my job, my income has replaced your beloved paper brochures. And you know what? I am afraid of watching the world burn. Every night I dream about smoke, debris, fire, the AI-controlled robots who force you to get information from them so they can indoctrinate you with what rafting companies you should book with and what restaurants you should eat with tonight. Ugh, doesn't that sound horrific? You know what? I have an idea. I think I can save the world from the burning fires. I will take on the burden and make a change. I will give you a brochure, and I will douse those flames. Thank you.
is Angelina, and I'm currently the Assistant Editor-in-Chief. I'd like to share some exciting news about the upcoming Association of Writers and Writing Programs Conference in March, otherwise known as AWP. This year, we're thrilled to attend the event in Los Angeles, which brings together writers and literary organizations to celebrate diverse voices and creativity. AWP's mission to uplift writers' academic programs and publications aligns perfectly with our goals here at Hindsight and Changing Skies. That is to showcase unique perspectives and storytelling. At AWP, we'll connect with writers, meet potential contributors, and engage with those exploring creative nonfiction for the first time. It is an opportunity to learn and exchange ideas on craft while celebrating artistic expression. AWP's dedication to fostering a strong writing community inspires us to continue supporting our readers and contributors with that same commitment. We look forward to creating a journal that we're proud of. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to my teammates who did a great job. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sean Steiny, the author of Salty Bison on page 72, followed by Elise Cabrera, author of Outdoorsman's Footprint on page 24. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sean Steiny. I'm going to read my piece, Salty Bison. Here we go. There's an island in the middle of the Great Salt Lake, inhabited by brutish beasts. Snotty, drooling, belching beasts the size of Volkswagens, dozens and dozens of them, right out in the open. Beasts that defined America, their slaughter then defined America again. Though Bob Marley didn't wail about them expressly, he certainly sang their name through his foggy haze. Antelope Island, named after the fastest land animal in North America, sits on the largest pelagic lake in the Western Hemisphere. Pronghorn antelope lope from the northern end to the southern end, but they go largely unnoticed. The birding can be remarkable too, but the flickers and chickadees aren't the attraction either. The American bison roams the island like it was theirs from time immemorial. They bathe in dirt, recycle grass to their gut, and mate until the urge to pass along their hulking lineage is satiated. A causeway leads out to the island, beginning in an indistinguishable Salt Lake suburb. Intersecting the lake for 7 paved miles, it's hard to conceive that some 700 bison await on the other side of this asphalt levee. In fact, the island is a teeming utopia for canines, ungulates, and raptors. Bobcat, coyote, mule deer, bighorn sheep, and bald eagles can all be found on this slender stretch of land. The bison aren't unlike those in Yellowstone, churlish and persnickety, though accustomed to gawkers and vehicles and photos aimed their way. Similarly, they don't seem to suffer the foolish bipeds, unless stalked too closely for a photo op, at which point they'll drop the swift hammer of a hind leg down with bone-crushing authority. We spotted a lone male bison 50 feet off the road on the north side of the island, contemplating a quick photo stop if he'd give us a regal pose, though we didn't want to break his aloof contentedness in that moment. We resolved to break just past him and avoid splintering his line of sight and bewildering his afternoon.
Hi everyone, my name is Elise Cabrera. I'm a current junior here at CU. My major is aerospace engineering. I wish I could be there with you all, but right now I am in Houston, Texas, interning at NASA, but I will be back for the spring semester, so I'm looking forward to that. Writing is just something I really like to do in my spare time, so I'm glad I was able to get involved in this publication. So my piece is called The Outdoorsman's Footprint, and I hope you enjoy the first part of it. Guanella Pass clings in snaking, barely paved switchbacks to the face of Mount Bierstadt over Georgetown, Colorado. It's a hazy dream, a half-light, a stillness. For me, the essence of Guanella Pass is contained in images: the biting air, crunching leaves, and overgrown railroad tracks leading to abandoned mine shafts. Its visitors are, as a rusted roadside sign noted, hikers, climbers, and adventurers. I can't wait to get my hands on some granite, Emily said, my ride for the Alpine Club's fall bouldering trip. Yeah, me too, I responded, peering out from the window of her teal sedan at our passing scenery. They stood in such stark contrast to the sterile white floors and MATLAB code and thermodynamics equations that filled my time. The wind danced through the leaves as the trees and foliage curled sleepily around the edges of Georgetown. Even in the cool light of morning and the distinct absence of human activity, the whole place teemed with life, the dog in someone's front yard and the hawks wheeling overhead. But in some places, I could see the wild being chipped away, the tendrils of telephone wiring, rough skid marks on the highway, and trickling runoff into the creek. There was an undercurrent of tension between Gwinnett and its visitors. "Slow down," one sign read. "Do not disturb the residents," another blared. In a roundabout way, the very people who erected these notices probably disrupted the environment most. They forced their roads and squat dwellings into this landscape, providing passages for others like me to invade as well. Never again will this region of the Rockies be truly pure, with unsullied air and water and an ecosystem free of human interference. We who choose to live and adventure in Gwinnett and find it so special are the very contamination which creeps at its corners. I hope you enjoyed the first part of my piece, and I hope you want to read the rest of it. Enjoy the event, and I will see you guys again, hopefully.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Siney and Ms. Cabrera. Hello, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I'm sure we're all suffering from a little bit of speaker fatigue. My name is Liam Downey. This is my third semester working as the online managing editor for both Hindsight and Changing Skies. And this is my fifth semester, I believe, in total with the journal in general. A big part of why I've spent so much time with the journal is because I love being able to read the most amazing and creative pieces from contributors who often have experiences or perspectives that I could only dream of it having. Since we're an international journal, that kind of thing happens a lot, and a big part of that comes through the website and our online submission platforms. So it's been a lot this entire year, kind of stepping into my own after we've lost a lot of seniors. I've had the pleasure of being able to read and edit some amazing pieces. Two of my favorite that we've ended up adding to our online library are Exit Music and Polar Vortex. I'd recommend checking them out if you guys want some more Hindsight after this. And our website and social media are a big part of how we reach people outside of Boulder. Excuse me. With all that in mind, it is my very big pleasure to introduce Nancy Whitecross on video to read The End of the Greatest Shoals on Earth on page 55.
Good evening, all. My name is Nancy Whitecross. I speak to you this evening from Johannesburg in South Africa. I would like to thank Hindsight, staff, and everyone who put this beautiful journal together. I was very thrilled to have my piece called The End of the Greatest Shoal on Earth published. I would like to read a couple of paragraphs for you. Fall, known elsewhere on our blue planet, is in full swing. The day is warmer than average, and I fear my trip will be fruitless, as the event depends on the ocean's temperature. I drive past a sea of beautiful pink, white, and lilac cosmos flowers, an essential autumn feature, warning us of a change of season. These non-indigenous flowers, introduced during the Anglo-Boer War from Argentinian horse feed, have found a home here in South Africa and now line the roads, their delicate blooms adding a touch of charm to the landscape. I have tried over the years to pick them, thinking they would brighten up my bedroom. Alas, they always die before I reach home. Nature intended them to be wild and wondrous. As climate change accelerates, I wonder how long it will be before this beauty is no longer. Having reached my destination, I am excited, hopeful. Will I witness the sardine run? I settle on the pool deck of my holiday home and watch for a dark patch in the water. This is evidence of a shoal of sardines, which indicates the beginning of the greatest shoal on Earth, known locally as the annual Sardine Run. My view of the ocean stretches 180 degrees, and as the deck elevated from the road, it's a perfect lookout spot. Unfortunately, one cannot predict the certainty of the event's date and time, which can happen any time from May in autumn to July in winter. But when it comes, millions of sardines migrate to the cooler waters of the Agulhas Bank and then up to Mozambique to spawn, creating a feeding frenzy as they move north along the east coast of southern Africa. The migration attracts seabirds, seals, dolphins, sharks, and whales, all there to round up pockets of fish into a bait ball. The shoals are approximately 7 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and 30 meters deep. In preparation for this event in Durban, the Sharks Board staff have removed the shark nets along the coast so sardines and predators do not get caught up in the nets. Sardines prefer inshore waters to the warmer, fast-flowing Agulhas current, which is strongest off the continental shelf. Sardines move closer to shore as they move north, but no one knows why. This is when the sardines beach and local fishermen scoop them by hand and put them into crates to sell. That's it, folks. Enjoy your evening. Have a wonderful time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good evening, everyone. It's awesome to see so many of you here. Well, sorry. My name's Jordan, and it's awesome to see so many of you here tonight for the Changing Skies launch. As one of the business managers, my role has been to ensure that we have the resources we need to keep this publication thriving. One of our core missions at Hindsight is highlighting issues like climate change and sustainability, topics that demand urgent action and support. That's why we're always looking for donors and supporters who share our passion for creating positive change. Your contributions are what allow us to amplify these critical voices and stories. I'd also like to mention we are always looking for new staffers and business-minded students to help us continue this important work. If you or someone you know is interested in a role that combines creativity, strategy, and the chance to make a real difference, we'd love to connect. I'd like to take a moment to thank my incredible co-business manager, Navan, and the rest of the Hindsight staff. Your hard work, passion, and commitment are what make this journal possible. Thank you all for being here tonight and for your continued support. Together, we can make a difference. Now please enjoy Noah Dunn read his piece, Prayer for Doe, on page 76.
This is for shorter people than I. That's better. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Noah Dunn, and I will be reading an excerpt from my essay, Prayer for the Doe. Before beginning, there's so much unseen, unsung work that goes into making journals like this happen. You guys have done a fabulous job. I've been poring over the thing itself. It's really beautifully done, so thank you all for making this happen. Thanks to all of you as well for just being here. Art needs an audience. You guys are important. Before beginning, I'll be diving in midway through the narrative, so there's some context that we'll need to get up on. Off the coast of Washington State, my home state, there's a small island called Frost Island, and what you need to know about Frost is that it's never been logged. It's still covered in old-growth forest, coastal rainforest, with trees 400-500 years old, possibly more, and all the ecosystem diversity and complexity that comes with woods of that age. There are half a dozen little cabins on the island, including one built by my friend Liam's family in the early 70s, and nobody lives on Frost full-time. There's no road and no electricity except for a generator to run the well pump. And in the absence of any native predators, the deer population on this tiny island has exploded in recent years, and now poses a very real threat to the survival of the forest and the stability of its freshwater table. So in the late autumn of 2020, I and 2 other friends accepted an invitation from Liam to go and do something about it. This is an essay about prayer. This is an essay about hope. Those mean more when you go through the shit, and I'm going to read about going through the shit. This is Prayer for the Doe. I laid the shotgun across the table to give its slide a much-needed coat of oil and looked around. 24 feathers, gleaned from the bases of nest trees, were woven in a wreath and hung on one wall. A cast-iron pan of impractical size, easily 3 feet across, mirrored it opposite, above the wood stove. The cabin and its furnishings were hand-hewn and much mended, the way families are. And that's the thing about families, the old and the new, they need each other. That's the thing about forests, too. That's why the old crooked sages drop their feathers and their eager seeds year in and year out, praying for the next green start to tickle their roots. That's why the white-spotted fawns observe their parents and, obedient children, follow suit to bow and crush those tender shoots between their teeth. And one fact I know, deer grow faster than trees. Liam came back through the front door, brushing one of the hats hanging in the entryway with a fond knuckle. I racked the slide. It was a day to kill deer. It's hard hunting on frost. The weather turns on a dime, and the black-tailed deer even faster. We only had the one gun, so we drew straws and did it like this. 2 of us stayed in the cabin while the other, armed, ventured out with Liam. He was the only one of us who had hunted deer before, the only one who knew the island, and it worked. Within 20 minutes, Luke shot a doe near the cabin. The first shot broke her forelegs, the second took her life, and the 2 that followed, I think, were because he couldn't believe he'd killed her. She was young, trusting, just stared at him as he walked up, he said. Carson had a harder time of it. He ranged the island for hours, and it started to rain, when eventually a clean shot from above and behind dropped a beautiful buck on the north shore. It took all 4 of us to bear him up the cliff, and we broke to process the meat. Okay, so here? Luke's voice shook a little, along with the skinning knife. He knelt before the doe, staring at her shattered legs. I don't remember how or why, but he'd named her Lucy. Really grab it, said Liam, like this. He leaned over, seized a handful of stomach skin, and pulled it taut. You're not going to hurt her. After he got her guts in the plastic bucket, Luke went for a walk to breathe. Carson started in on Chad, as he'd named the buck, while I looped a fraying nylon line through Lucy's ankles and hoisted her over the crossbar we'd lashed between a pair of trees. In her short life, she'd never known a predator. She hadn't even thought to fear the shape in the black down jacket and double front pants. Instinct, I thought, isn't so hard-coded after all. Or at least it doesn't take long to be forgotten. Had the first shot missed, I'm sure she would have remembered in time to run, but it hadn't, so she couldn't. And that's how I came to be wrapping one of her hind legs in a game bag when a feathered front of snow drifted in off the water and brushed my neck. I turned to face the ocean. A single white flake, unique in all the universe, came floating down. It landed in a bright puddle of still warm blood and lingered a moment before melting, unrecognizable, into just another 1,000 million molecules. It was early for snow. I looked at Liam. It was my turn to hunt. We chased ghosts for hours. The weather got worse and the light began to wane, a signal to guests who had outstayed their welcome. All right, folks, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Our legs and lungs were burning from climbing up and down the steep draws, hands bleeding from barnacled rocks. The rest of the herd had gotten smart. They were in no mood to be found, not after smelling the sulfur and iron we'd left on the air. Liam offered a few times to call it quits and come back in the morning, but I insisted we keep at it. I wanted to repay my invitation to the island. I wanted to protect the trees. And most of all, worst of all, I just wanted to kill a deer. We were crouched in a meadow on the east flank of the island when I spied a buck downhill and upwind of us. After 10 minutes creeping, I gained a clear shot at 20 yards, close enough to watch his velvet nose twitch in the heather. Rash adrenaline overtook me, a knee-knocking thrill that made my mouth go dry as I realized I had him. Soft, wet moss under my belly masked the sound of the gun as I drew it to my shoulder and aligned my shot. My breath steamed my glasses. I had him. I inhaled. I pulled. I'm 8 years old again, down at the quarry with my dad, staring down a black barrel at a phalanx of aluminum cans. He's telling me, breathe smooth, squeeze gentle. He's telling me never to rush. Noah, he says, you have to want to hit it. The slug went high. I must have jerked in anticipation of the recoil. The buck started and disappeared toward the shore. We were done for the day. The timing is so tough, said Liam as we traipsed down a hill. It's hard to stay cool, but if you wait too long, you miss the moment. I nodded and shifted the gun to the crook of my elbow. Yeah, I should have taken more time, I said. You know what, though? I think I'm glad I didn't. What do you mean? And I told him how, when I got the buck in my sights, I wanted to pull the trigger because I was the only one there who hadn't killed a deer. How fucked would that have been if I got him thinking that, I asked? Just an awful reason for him to die. We were on the east flank of the island. The sun hadn't fully set, but the grand old trees blocked all but the last traces of light to make a premature and formless night. And then again, how would he have known? And it would have been better for the trees, so is that just selfish to think? I turned my head to look at his silhouette. Liam says, a lot. He thinks about what you've said before he replies. The silhouette sprouted an arm, pointed at the humped shadow of the pump house. We should get the water going for dinner. We fired up the generator and let its roar fill the thoughtful silence. I set its timer for 10 minutes. Liam's grandpa Skip, I knew, passed away a few years prior. I wondered how he would feel to know that the aquifer he had found was drying out. It's a terrible vulnerability to love anything unique. It's about you, said the silhouette. It had to speak loudly over the engine. I don't see any way around that, but that doesn't have to mean it's selfish. No matter what you're thinking about when you do it, the deer dies either way. So the difference has to be what you make of it, not just why you did it, but what you take away from having done it. What are you learning from the deer, and how do you do better next time? I said. A pause. My eyes were adjusting to the dark, and I could see that Liam was looking back at the generator. Hey, he asked, did I ever tell you that Grandpa found the well with a dowsing rod? And then it made sense. Then, for a moment, I felt I was seeing frost through my friend's eyes, and realized in the next, he was seeing it through mine. Liam didn't join my hunt as a guide or as a coach. It had nothing to do with safety and everything to do with propriety. Just as we were grateful for having been invited, he was grateful that we had accepted. The old needs the new. Friends need each other. And everything needs to eat. Helping us navigate the island for something as solid and sensible as meat, that was his thanks. That was his prayer. I looked at my friend, sore and spent, slumping on the pump house wall. He had spent all day running the cliffs for no better reason than it was the right thing to do, and that can only ever be an exhausting task. I voiced this to him, and over the concussive thrum of the generator, he laughed and said, I need a beer. We had a few. The weather had eased a little, still cold but less wet, and the four of us sat out on the back deck with our drinks. We listened to the world and watched the last of the sun set behind it. The evening ferry to Lopez Island was churning through the sound, lowing like some monstrous mechanized bovine, a gas-belching monument to the kind of world from which Frost was a beautiful, futile escape. We looked at the blood on our hands and felt the hunger in our stomachs. To live, something else must die. Be it plant or animal consumption kills. The deer dies either way. So what do you do about it? We grilled backstraps in the dark and gathered again in the kerosene flicker, wood stove roaring, our laughter steaming the windows. We were all ravenous, and the good meat made us feel strong. We opened a bottle of wine and made a toast to Lucy, to Chad. There was my prayer. The rain began to fall again, and we fell to sleep. Thank you.
Thanks, Noah. So good, I forgot I got to get back up here. Thanks for the beautiful reading, and to all y'all for tuning in or coming to our launch. Thanks also to my colleagues in the PWR, Eric Berger, Sig Bird, and Carrie Riley, who helped so much behind the scenes. Thanks most of all to the writers and artists in this issue. Everybody here, be sure to get your free copy of Changing Skies. Good night.